and it's called quantum healing. And one of the parts of it is determining what kind of baggage is each person carrying. Like what weight, what backpack is on your back with all these heavy weights that you don't even remember choosing, that you just grew up with, or came from your ancestors, or came from your childhood, or came from places you don't even imagine where it came from. One of those things is called agreements. An agreement means something. See, we're all sovereign free will beings. It means that ultimately no one can force you to do anything, but you certainly can be scared, tricked, or cajoled into doing things you don't want to do. So that's the vulnerability. So at some point in the past, we agreed to carry these burdens. We agreed to take on certain limiting beliefs, like I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, money is scarce. Uh, every time I try to be successful, something always happens and messes it up, or I just can't seem to get healthy, and I can't, like these are all these agreements, because a sovereign being doesn't have to do those things, but we agree to them. We forget that we agreed to them. So we're gonna during the guided meditation today, I'm gonna, offer the invitation to release these agreements if you feel ready to do so and claim more freedom, because you can. And this group is a great way to support that. But where did all this come from? Where did this agreeing to be less than, or agreeing to be in a box, or agreeing to be full of fear come from? Well, I'm going to offer one possible explanation. And again, just like anything else, it's a belief, it's something. I'm not claiming this to be ultimate truth, but there is quite a bit of evidence behind it. And that is, there's in ancient Sumeria, there was tablets created that were very advanced information about the dawn of the human race. And many scholars have looked at these tablets and translated them. And one of them was a person named Gabriel Sitchins. And he wrote several books about what he found. And basically, the story that he and many other people have pieced together, from the Sumerian tablets and other archaeological records and channeling and different methods, is that there was some very advanced beings that needed gold and other minerals that they couldn't get on their own planet and abundantly enough. So they saw that Earth had these resources, and they saw it was a lot of hard work to get this stuff out. So they genetically created some slaves that could do mining for them. And those were the original humans, genetically created to be slaves and to do mining and menial labor, but didn't have much intelligence or soul or anything like that. So these beings, which are sometimes called the Anunnaki, and again, I'm not claiming this to be true. I'm just saying this is a certain allegory. It's a story. It's something that may be helpful. If you don't believe it to be literally true, you could take it as a fable or as a myth or something. But just there's a value in hearing the story, I feel. So they realized these really dumb slaves weren't getting the job done. So they thought, we got to give them some more intelligence and a little bit of spiritual spark so they can actually be your useful slaves. And when that happened, these humans rebelled and said, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. And so according to this narrative, they broke away from these, to a certain extent, from these masters, and the whole human saga started unfolding. Right? And it's way more complex than that. I'm just giving you one little snapshot of it. Another interesting snapshot comes from Drunvalo Melchizedek, who wrote these incredible books called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, and ran these workshops all over the world for a long, long time that had amazing information in it. And he says in his information that there was a race of beings called the Lemurians who lived in what we now call the Pacific, who were just very kind of androgynous and one with nature, and they didn't have like a big ego self like we have, very tuned into all the forces of nature and higher consciousness. And they knew that their land, Lemuria, would sink. They knew in advance it would happen. So they migrated to another landmass that we now call Atlantis. I don't normally talk, I'll tell you, these meetings, I never have talked about this stuff before. This is very unusual for me. I just want you to know, for anyone new, this isn't my normal kind of presentation. I just felt really moved to share this, or something. It just came to me that it would be valuable. And so they came and they were living pretty harmoniously on what we now call Atlantis. And then this other race came from outer space that we would now call the Hebrews, that were the ancestors of the Jewish people that on our planet. And they were different, but they lived pretty much in harmony with these Lemurians. They had their different areas of the land. But then this other race showed up called the Martians, that were very warlike and very aggressive. They were so aggressive that they'd already destroyed their own world. And so they had to fight, so they came to Earth to look for greener, they wanted to come and dominate and control here. So they came to Atlantis and tried to take over everybody. But the Atlanteans were powerful enough to push them back, and they ended up in some kind of like, okay, you stay on your part of the island and be warlike, and we'll stay on ours and be peaceful. And that worked for a while. And there's a lot more to the story, but the thing I want to share is that those Martians have insinuated, or the descendants of those Martians have insinuated themselves into all these societies, and they're pretty much all the dictators and military, big CEOs who are misusing their power, and the ones who are game playing the human race and manipulate. Like, in other words, they're the ancestors of the Martians, or the descendants of the Martians. But it's all it's way, way beyond what I could possibly address here today. And I'm in no way an authority on this. So what we have is, we have in the deep in the human psyche, this origin of being slaves, no matter how much we feel like we've transcended that. We also have this split between people that are more like kind of wanting peace and harmony and just leave us alone and just live in harmony with nature, and then this more warlike, aggressive, want to control and dominate, both very strongly in the human race. And it's very much like the United States of America, because think how the USA was founded. It was the first people, like Columbus, came and caused genocide to native peoples. They brought smallpox, and they, just all this stuff. And then another whole group came and brought slaves over from Africa to build the economy on. So our country was based in some really dark stuff, and yet, Thomas Jefferson, a lot of these people got these very enlightened ideas to create a constitution, a Bill of Rights, and a democracy that was pretty amazing at that time. So again, that mixture between something enlightened and high and something very low and predatory is how this country was founded. So we shouldn't be surprised that both of those streams are still battling for control in our country, in this country. So what I really want to draw your attention to is, what do we need to do to get that out of our gut, the slave programming, the split, so that we can actually fulfill our lives as avatars, as living Christs on this planet? If you don't like the word Christ, use a different word. I'm not a Christian, by the way. I just like that word because it means the anointed one. It has a certain meaning. But there's enlightened beings who can really stop being so split between those two things. It takes breaking the agreement. And so with so many people, I have, in healing sessions, had the privilege of helping them to do that. And I've trained a lot of other people to do that work. And many other people are doing their own versions of that. It's so many people are doing things that are like this. So I think one reason that, the most used pharmaceutical drug is in the world, by far, by a huge margin, it's Prozac. Because so many people are feeling this inside of themselves and they can't handle it. They need something to dull the pain of that. So like the people who are, let's say we call, who are doing the manipulating, controlling, or the, white supremacy, white privilege, or whatever you'd call all that, most of them are also in fear inside themselves, because they have their own overlords who are controlling them. So the whole thing is really in need of a big overhaul. Basically, it's a good way to put it. So light workers, which is what we are, have come here with a great deal of resources and power and Shakti and superpowers to help this situation. But guess what? There was a lot of pushback when we came here. And so a lot of us are really traumatized from all the things we've been through, having put out this light and had a lot of, a combination of, very cruel and difficult things happen to us and our own egos getting in the way and all that kind of stuff, which is, so here we are at this moment. So I've always asked myself, how can light workers release all this conflict and get free and do the job we're here to do, which is to basically bring the light and help people to make this shift that we're going through right now. So what I keep getting the solution is that we need to come together to create a critical mass where there's enough people focusing their love and attention together at the same time, so that it creates a critical mass that these you might call higher beings, called ascended masters, archangels, galactic light beings, who are not stuck in the system that we're in, can actually infuse their resources into the earth. They can only do it to a limited extent until we create a critical mass of people that can receive it and vibrate at a high enough voltage to receive that. So as I said back in the 60s, put that in your pipe and smoke it. So I feel like my purpose is to do, even though it feels like I'm groping along at times, is do whatever I can to encourage that to happen. And that's why I've created this Light Worker Ministry, which is an online church that's totally non-religious in the traditional sense. It exists to help bring light workers together so we empower each other, claim our superpowers, and create that critical mass. And every Friday, and tomorrow, by the way, is Friday, we have a 15-minute call to meditate together and create that critical mass without any Zoom, without any phone call. You just do it on your own, in your own space. So it's at 12 noon Pacific time every Friday for just 15 minutes. And I really, if you resonate with anything I'm saying, or you're feeling these things, please, make a mini sacrifice to clear off of, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes on Fridays, to join us and just put your consciousness together with other light workers, because it really does make a difference. It really, really does. So Deborah said, I do joyfully release. I love that. So what I'm going to do is put on some helpful music, and then there'll be, just create a healing space where you have full permission to break these old agreements if you feel up to it. And so my opinion about Jesus and Buddha and Kuan Yin and these great avatars, they absolutely did not come here to be worshipped. They came here to prototype what we are all able to do, which is to go through this physiological shift in our nervous system and our consciousness to, confront and release, this intense suffering of the slave self and the human condition, and actually be able to embody these superpowers, not in some weird supernatural way, but just in a very natural way, just being yourself. So remember who you are. It takes real courage to step out of this slave programming, because it's so deeply wired. It's become so normal that it would feel threatening to be out of that. Really go for the part of you that is pure love, because you absolutely are that already. Just feel the steadiness of this group, like the support of this group. And if you're sensitive, beyond this group, there's amazing support coming from other realms, the light. If you don't feel it, you can just be open to it. Just really relax. There's nothing to do here. Breath is extremely important. To do your best to open to this radiance of this field. And just relax and breathe it in. And having your tongue and the master hook up behind your two front upper teeth makes it easier. Actually makes it easier. Breathe this in. Breathe fully. There's this one line from The Lord of the Rings. Breathe the fresh, clean air, my friend, Gandalf says to somebody. After he frees this king from this enchantment. Breathe the fresh, clean air. I'm willing to take the risk of being free. Many people stay in abusive marriages and situations because being free is much more threatening than putting up with the abuse. And that's an analogy to all of us on some level, on a very deep level. I'm willing to be a stand for being a sovereign human being, and not through some political ideology, because that word's been co-opted by a lot of different, groups and things like that have maybe partially we're tuned into something, and then just without any ideology, without any beliefs, pure thing, sovereign human being. This is the time. Even if my mind doesn't even know what it's the time for, this is the time. Tune into your heart. Ask the wisdom of your heart to show you what this is the time for. And we'll have some time for shares very soon, what you get. Yes, Denise said, the prison cell is not locked. Perfect observation. Just step out of it. Which is just a matter of giving yourself permission. Just turn up the music a little more. Hopefully you can hear it more now. I accept my responsibility to get in touch with my superpowers or my gifts and to share them past my comfort zone, past my convenience. And I know I can't do this alone. It's about coming together. So you might just ask yourself, what agreements have I made? To be small, to be less than, to feel like something's wrong with me, to feel like I'm there's something holding me back. These are software programs that have been projected into your mind. They're not even you. They're just fake software programs that are operating on the fourth dimensional level. It takes courage to realize that there's no truth to them, but they seem so true, and people keep repeating it and talking about it. So, like, we can talk about all these issues for so long, but when it comes right down to it, there's a deep core fear that at some point we have to say, I'm not going to let that stop me anymore, because I know who I really am. And there's such joy in that, and being with other people who are doing that. So I welcome you to say within yourself some version of this. I know I have these amazing gifts, and I'm already sharing them in many ways, but I know there's more. And I'm ready right now to say, even if my mind doesn't know what it is, I'm ready to emanate these gifts I am to this group tonight. No technique required, no mental understanding required. You just say yes. I'm sharing my transmission that comes from source with everybody else here tonight.